My beloved sisters, today I want to speak to you from the heart. We live in a time where being soft, passive, and overly accommodating is mistaken for righteousness or patience. But Islam teaches us balance. Kindness does not mean weakness. Mercy does not mean allowing others to walk over you. Kindness is a beautiful trait. It reflects the mercy that Allah has placed in our hearts. But we must understand something very important. Kindness is not weakness. Too often, people confuse being kind with being a doormat. They believe that to be righteous, they must say yes to everything, tolerate abuse, stay silent when wronged, and keep giving even when it's hurting them. That is not true kindness. That is self-destruction disguised as patience. The Prophet Muhammad was the kindest of all people, but he was also the strongest. He forgave, but he also spoke firmly when injustice occurred. He was generous, but he didn't allow people to manipulate or disrespect him. His character was balanced, merciful yet dignified. When we become overly soft, always trying to please others, always afraid to upset anyone, we lose that balance. We begin to lose ourselves, and that is not what Islam teaches us. Being kind means helping others, speaking gently, offering support and showing mercy. But it also means knowing when to say no, when to protect yourself, and when to walk away from what's harming your heart. A believer is not naive. A believer sees with insight. Allah commands us to have mercy, but He also commands justice. And justice begins with how we treat ourselves. If you are always giving, always apologizing, always sacrificing, and others are always taking, always expecting, always blaming, then it's time to ask yourself, is this truly kindness, or is this fear? Are you being kind, or are you just afraid of confrontation, afraid of rejection, afraid of being alone? True kindness has strength behind it. It doesn't crumble under pressure. It doesn't allow others to take advantage of your goodness. It's rooted in the understanding that Allah is watching, and your dignity is a trust from Him. So stop believing that being soft means being good. Islam is a religion of balance. Be kind but be strong. Be gentle but be firm. Let your heart stay pure, but never let it become a place where others dump their burdens and walk away. You were not created to be weak. You were created to be whole. Setting boundaries is not a sign of rebellion or arrogance. It is a sign of self-respect and emotional maturity. Even with those we love, even with those closest to us, we must have clear limits. Islam teaches us to honor our relationships, but not at the cost of our peace, dignity or obedience to Allah. There is a fine line between being patient and being taken for granted, and when we fail to set boundaries, that line disappears. Many women in their love for their families, their spouses, or their friends, keep giving endlessly. They keep saying yes, even when their heart is tired, their body is exhausted, and their soul is stretched too thin. They remain silent when hurt, thinking that speaking up might cause conflict. But love without boundaries becomes suffocating. Relationships without limits turn toxic. When you never speak your truth, when you allow others to treat you however they please, they slowly forget your worth. And sometimes, so do you. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you love less. It means you love wisely. It means you know your rights and honor them as a trust from Allah. The Prophet himself taught us to speak up when something is wrong, to express ourselves with wisdom, and to stand up for justice. Even if it's uncomfortable. And if we don't do that in our own homes and relationships, then where else will we? Boundaries protect your heart. They teach others how to treat you. When you say, "This hurts me," or "I need space," or "I can't do this right now," you are not being rude. You are being honest. And honesty is part of faith. When you allow others to guilt you into silence or obedience, you're slowly killing your own voice. And in the long run, that only breeds resentment. Don't wait for someone to push you to the edge before you finally say enough. Start early. Be respectful. But be firm. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are doors with locks, to make sure only those who respect your value can come in. Loving others does not mean losing yourself. Islam honors both your kindness and your strength. Use both. Islam is a religion of balance, and within that balance lies the beautiful principle that every believer has dignity. A woman in Islam is not meant to suffer in silence, to tolerate harm endlessly, or to carry emotional burdens alone in the name of being righteous. While patience is a virtue, and silence can be noble in some situations, Islam does not require anyone to become emotionally invisible or accept injustice in the name of faith. Silent suffering is not a badge of honor. It's often a sign of fear, confusion, or conditioning. The lives of the female companions of the Prophet are filled with examples of strong, vocal, and self-respecting women. They did not remain silent when they were hurt. They didn't hide their pain behind fake smiles. They spoke up. They asked questions. They disagreed when necessary, and they did all this while remaining modest, respectful, and close to Allah. That is the real example of womanhood in Islam, one that combines emotional strength with spiritual submission. When a woman is constantly told to keep quiet, to forgive endlessly without accountability, to stay in situations that are harming her, she is being stripped of a right that Islam has already given her. Your voice matters. Your feelings matter. Your experiences are valid. Allah did not create you to be invisible. He created you with wisdom, emotion, and value. And those are not things to hide or suppress. There is a difference between being patient and being oppressed. Islam calls us to patience with life's tests, but also commands us to seek justice and speak out against wrong. Remaining in pain while pretending everything is fine is not taqwa. It is not strength. It is not faith. It is a form of slow emotional damage, and Allah never asks that of you. If something is hurting you, speak. If someone is disrespecting you, confront. If a situation is crushing your soul, seek help. Don't wait until you are completely broken to ask for support. You are not being disobedient for standing up for your dignity. You are honoring the value Allah gave you. Islam never called you to be weak. It called you to be wise, compassionate, and strong, all at once. Saying no is one of the most powerful things you can do for your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. But for many women, especially those with kind hearts, saying no comes with a heavy dose of guilt. They feel responsible for everyone's happiness, as if they must always agree, always give, always sacrifice. But this constant yes, even when it goes against your comfort, energy, or values, begins to destroy your peace, and your peace is not something you should be giving away to keep others comfortable. In Islam, our hearts are a trust from Allah. We are taught to take care of them, to guard them from harm, and to preserve our inner peace. That includes learning to say no, without guilt. Not every request deserves your time. Not every relationship deserves your emotional energy. Not every expectation placed on you is fair or healthy. Saying no is not rejection. It is protection. It's a way of choosing what is best for your deen, your mental health, and your future. The Prophet Muhammadan was gentle and generous, but he also had boundaries. He didn't say yes to everything. He prioritized what mattered. And he taught us to do the same. In a world that constantly pulls at your attention, your energy, and your heart, you must learn to choose wisely. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Because when you constantly say yes to everyone else, you eventually start saying no to yourself. And that leads to emotional burnout and resentment. Don't let guilt manipulate into a life of overcommitment. You do not owe everyone access to your time, your attention, or your kindness. When you say no, with respect and clarity, the people who truly care for you will understand. And those who get upset or distance themselves were likely only there for what you could offer them, not for who you truly are. You were not created to serve everyone's expectations. You were created to worship Allah, protect your soul, and live with intention. Let your no be confident. Let it be rooted in self-respect. Let it remind others that your peace matters, because it does. And in the sight of Allah, that peace is priceless. Many women fall into the trap of trying to please everyone around them. They say yes when they want to say no. They stay silent when they feel hurt. They agree with things that go against their own values, just to avoid conflict. It starts with small things. Doing favors when you're tired. Saying you're fine when you're not. Staying in relationships where you feel unseen. Over time, this pattern becomes a lifestyle. And the worst part is it feels noble. It feels like you're being selfless, like you're doing the right thing. But in truth, you're slowly losing yourself to the expectations of others. Islam does not teach us to live for people's approval. It teaches us to live for Allah. Pleasing people at the cost of your soul is not a virtue. It's a silent form of self-betrayal. You begin to shrink yourself to fit into molds you were never meant to be in. You ignore your own pain to keep others comfortable. You pretend to be okay just to avoid disappointing anyone. And before you realize it, you've built a life where everyone is happy. Except you. The Prophet never allowed the fear of people's opinions to compromise truth. He was gentle and compassionate, but he was not a people pleaser. His focus was always on what Allah expected from him. He said what needed to be said, even when it was unpopular. He lived with integrity, not approval. And that is the example we are meant to follow. When you start living for people, you will never find peace. Their expectations will change. Their opinions will shift. And no matter how much you give, it will never be enough. But when you live to please Allah, your heart becomes steady. You learn to say yes when it's right, and no when it's necessary. Without guilt, without fear. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You don't have to carry the weight of other people's happiness. Your soul deserves rest. Your voice deserves to be heard. Your heart deserves to be protected. Start choosing yourself. Not in arrogance but in obedience to Allah. Because He never asked you to lose yourself for others. He asked you to honor the self He gave you. Many women fall into the trap of trying to please everyone around them. They say yes when they want to say no. They stay silent when they feel hurt. They agree with things that go against their own values, just to avoid conflict. It starts with small things. Doing favors when you're tired, saying you're fine when you're not, staying in relationships where you feel unseen. Over time, this pattern becomes a lifestyle. And the worst part is, it feels noble. It feels like you're being selfless, like you're doing the right thing. But in truth, you're slowly losing yourself to the expectations of others. Islam does not teach us to live for people's approval. It teaches us to live for Allah. Pleasing people at the cost of your soul is not a virtue. It's a silent form of self-betrayal. You begin to shrink yourself to fit into molds you were never meant to be in. You ignore your own pain to keep others comfortable. You pretend to be okay just to avoid disappointing anyone. And before you realize it, you've built a life where everyone is happy. Except you. The Prophet never allowed the fear of people's opinions to compromise truth. He was gentle and compassionate, but he was not a people pleaser. His focus was always on what Allah expected from him. He said what needed to be said, even when it was unpopular. He lived with integrity, not approval. And that is the example we are meant to follow. When you start living for people, you will never find peace. Their expectations will change. Their opinions will shift. And no matter how much you give, it will never be enough. But when you live to please Allah, your heart becomes steady. You learn to say yes when it's right, and no when it's necessary. Without guilt, without fear. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You don't have to carry the weight of other people's happiness. Your soul deserves rest. Your voice deserves to be heard. Your heart deserves to be protected. Start choosing yourself, not in arrogance, but in obedience to Allah. Because He never asked you to lose yourself for others. He asked you to honor the self He gave you. Being gentle is a beautiful quality, especially in a world filled with harshness and noise. But gentleness should never come at the cost of your dignity. Many women are taught to be soft-spoken, accommodating and quiet. Even when they're being mistreated. They are praised for enduring disrespect silently, for smiling through pain, for staying quiet to keep the peace. But that is not peace. That is suppression. Islam does not ask you to accept disrespect in the name of being gentle. It asks you to uphold your honor, your boundaries, and your worth. The Prophet Muhammad was the embodiment of mercy and gentleness, but he never tolerated injustice or allowed others to be wronged. He corrected people with kindness, but also with clarity. He taught us that every believer, man or woman, has rights, and those rights include being treated with respect. Being gentle does not mean staying silent when someone crosses the line. It means choosing to respond with grace, but not accepting humiliation. There's a common fear: if I speak up, people will say I'm rude. If I set boundaries, they'll call me difficult. But that fear comes from the desire to be accepted by everyone. And the truth is, not everyone will accept your strength. Some people are comfortable with your silence, because it allows them to control the situation. The moment you speak up, the moment you draw a line, they feel threatened. But that is not your problem to fix. Your responsibility is to protect your dignity without losing your gentleness. You can be soft in your tone and strong in your message. You can smile and still say, I won't tolerate this. You can love someone and still say, this is not acceptable. True strength is being able to stay calm and respectful while standing firm. Let people feel the firmness in your boundaries without raising your voice. Let your silence be powerful when needed, and your words be purposeful when spoken. Respect starts with you. When you allow others to continually cross your limits, they will keep doing so. But when you show them, through action, that you expect to be treated with dignity, they will either rise to meet it or remove themselves. Either way, you've chosen peace, and you've chosen strength. My dear sisters, it is time to wake up from the illusion that softness equals goodness, that silence equals righteousness, and that endurance without limits equals strength. Allah did not create you to be trampled, ignored, or taken for granted. He created you with honor, with value, and with a voice. He gave you intelligence, emotion, wisdom, and intuition, and He expects you to use them not only to serve others, but also to protect your soul. Being a kind woman does not mean being a weak woman. Islam never asked you to destroy yourself in the name of patience. It asked you to be balanced, merciful, but firm, gentle, but principled, giving, but guarded. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to speak up. You are allowed to protect your peace. Every time you choose to prioritize your self-respect over people-pleasing, you are honoring the trust Allah has placed in you. Every time you draw a boundary, you are refusing to let this world reduce you. And every time you remind someone how to treat you, you are reminding yourself of your worth. So stop being a soft woman in a world that rewards strength. Stop apologizing for your standards. Stop hiding your pain to make others feel better. And stop thinking that being quiet about your suffering makes you more pious. It doesn't. Strength is not arrogance. It is not hardness. It is knowing who you are, who you belong to, and what you deserve. Stand with grace. Speak with wisdom. Walk with courage. And never forget, your strength as a woman is not in how much you can endure silently, but in how boldly you can protect your peace while staying true to your deen. May Allah grant you the wisdom to choose yourself when needed, the courage to set boundaries, and the strength to live with honor and balance. Ameen.